Okay, so now I'm going to show you the actual wiring of the SIXWIN module. The main things to consider are this thing, right? This is the main module. You can see here, and the wiring, main wiring that came with it. It's very important wiring, right? Next, you have this CAN bus. When I ordered the CAN bus from the attached link, it also came with this wiring attached. So what it means is, let me remove this and show it to you. So you can see I have separated this, right? And then this is the other harness that was provided, that was purchased, sorry, that I purchased in the third link that was provided on the SIXWIN website, on the Amazon link, along with the other two products. So essentially you have this main thing that you need to first connect. This is the most complicated part in my opinion. The rest all is all manual, so you cannot make a mistake, which I'm going to show you in the video still. But this is the most complicated part, right? So in my case, because I have purchased this separate CAN bus that they have asked. So just to make sure that they look almost the same with a small difference, I'm going to use with the CAN bus, or the harness that I purchased separately, because if they have asked, there might be some small difference, and I just want to make sure I'm not making any mistake. So I'm going to connect it. The one thing to note, if you notice, we are only going to connect this CAN bus in one direction, not the other. This will never be connected throughout this whole connection. So there will be nothing connected on this port here. I know it's a bit surprising, but that's how it is. That's how they are mentioned to do it. So I'm going to just follow it. If you notice this wire that was provided here, like this you are supposed to connect it to this one of this wire, which says CCD-A-Win. So essentially you are going to connect this here, like this, to this thing here. I'm going to connect it and show it to you, like this. So yeah, so this is essentially with a separate harness that we purchased, and we are connecting this extra wire here. Next will come the complicated part, where you're going to start connecting everything to this thing. I'm going to show you detailed instructions so that you don't make a mistake. So this is the thing that we have just connected, the CAN bus and everything, and the whole harness and everything. We are going to connect this black thing, right, into this port here of SIXWIN. And notice all it was click. Now because we did a lot of work before, so it's easy, but technically it is not that easy, so just so that you know. Okay, so yeah, the CAN bus is connected. Next we are going to connect the power cable, which was provided with this thing here. So I'm not sure if it's a power cable or what, but this is the thing. I think it's RCA cable, sorry, and this one was the power cable. And we're just going to connect this here, like this. This was provided with the device itself. So this is the existing stuff. Next, if you notice this, along with this CAN bus and the harness wiring, we have this I think radio antenna thing. We are going to connect it into this port here, the radio one. It's now connected. Okay, so now most of the stuff is connected. Next, this CCD-A-Win cable we are going to connect over here. If you notice here, yeah, CCD-A-Win, the cable, this thing here, we are going to connect here. Okay, next is this thing, this 2-wire thingy, right? So if you notice, this 2-wire thingy is hanging in this harness, and what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to put it here. In this thing, the 2 wires. Next, if you notice these 2 wires, these are USB cables. So essentially, in a Honda Civic XL, there are some ports right below your charging port, in the bottom side USB port, and you want to make sure that they are connected to this thing here. So, and you can charge your device at least. So we are going to connect these 2 cables here for that one particular wire, which I'm going to show you in the car. Now there are 2 of them, right? One is 4-pin and one is 6-pin, and they both essentially go here. I want to show you how it looks. It's like a square shaped thing. Okay. Now if you have harnesses, you might also have something similar provided. which is this kind of USB cable. It might be needed for other cars. It is not needed for Honda Civic LX base model as far as I know. So you might need it depending on your car. They have the same 4 and 6 pins. So really depends on your situation or what your car interior has. In case of Honda Civic LX 2016 base model, this is not needed, rather this is needed. So we are going to connect this. Okay, so now I'm going to connect this here, like this thing here, this 4 pin inside this 4 pin port here, inside the 4 pin port here. So let me show it to you. And next I'm going to connect the 6 pin here inside this 6 pin port. And everything is connected. One more thing, this is essentially the GPS model. You are supposed to connect it over here like this. So if you notice this thing here, this plug here, you are going to connect it over here. Let me remove it and show it to you. Do not remove this tape. You are supposed to connect this tape to the car, and you don't want it to be, get the sticky part dirty. Otherwise it won't stick properly, which is why don't remove it right now. We are going to attach it to the car itself. Okay, so now if you notice, I am connecting this GPS thing here like this. After it's connected, it will be connected here like this. So once you start your Android Auto or CarPlay or whatever, you want GPS signal for your cars to see all of those things, right? Whether which direction it's going, where it is, and this module will essentially help with getting the GPS signal. Okay, next I want you to notice this. Using this power cable here, there is this one yellow cable which says CVBS in 2. There are technically 3 yellow cables, but you want this one, CVBS in 2. And what you want is, you want to connect this to the yellow of the whole harness that we connected to the CAN bus. And essentially, you want to just connect this here like this. Next, you will find these 2 cables. One of them says aux in R. Another one says white one, which says aux in L. Aux in L, right? So these 2 are once again going to get connected here. So what that means is the aux in R will get connected to this harness thing, the big harness thing, like this, and the aux in L here, aux in L will be connected to this white cable here of the harness as well. So yeah, this is my car and this is what it looks. We are next going to open up this trim here, and you are going to do that by sticking this thing in and putting it in. So here like this. It's a little bit tricky, but you can essentially remove it. It's difficult to do it with one hand, but you can essentially remove it by removing this trim here. It's a little bit of manual work. Yes, you can see it's coming out. You're going to do it across this whole thing, and then you're going to remove this trim as well as this trim here. So both the trims. Okay, so I have removed this, and essentially this is how it looks after it comes out. So you're going to do the same thing on this other side here as well. You're going to remove this other trim as well. Okay, so I essentially removed it on both the sides here, and what I did was I had to essentially remove it from this part here more first, and then I just had to pull it a little bit. Then everything came up and only the last clip here was removed that I had to remove using the plier again. So once you remove this front part here, then you might actually just lift it up and then the whole thing is come out. Next, we are going to remove this. I want to notice something in this model, Honda Civic LX Basic. This part here and this part here is separate. We are not going to remove this part. So we are going to remove it, but we are not going to replace this part. We are going to remove it just for the purpose so that we can install it properly. And once the installation of our Android unit is done, we are going to put this whole part back here. But this whole part will be replaced by our new thing that we have purchased. And then we are going to reattach this back, and then we are going to test everything. One thing to note here, if you notice here, there is this Android port here, the charging port here. This is the port that I mentioned that we need to make sure is essentially works, and that's why with the two 4-pin and 6-pin thing that we connected, we are going to make sure that this is internally connected to this power cable and everything correctly. So that is what it is essentially, those ports are used for. So just wanted to point out, you don't need to do anything, just more like an informational purposes. Next, we are going to remove this part here. This is connected by 2 pins and 2 pins. Note this part, once we are done connecting our Android unit, we are going to put it back in. So you want to keep this safely and store this safely while we are doing this whole procedure. Now, okay, so I was having a little bit of trouble from pulling out, and I noticed that you can see the tips from here. So essentially use my pry tool, the smaller part, to put this here and then just pull it. And you can do it the similar thing here as well and pulling it. And do it on the other side as well first. Then it will essentially help you easily remove it if you are having trouble just like me. Okay, so I was able to remove it. You can notice the pins here and the same 2 other pins on this other side here as well. And now notice these 2 cables. Now these 2 cables are going back exactly the place they are here right now once we remove them. So we are going to remove it, but what I'm going to say, I'm going to tape them so that I remember not to use them in anything else. That way these 2 cables, even though they are connected, they will be marked separately once we remove it. So this is where they are right now, and eventually once we attach the whole thing, we are going to attach all of this thing back here and put this thing back as well. So these cables are going to exactly the same place where they are right now. Remove this thing now, and these 2 cables, once again, they are going to go back this once we are done connecting everything else and once everything is working. So for now, even though we are removing it, make sure that you don't reuse this cable by mistake for something else, and just keep them marked and separate. Next, you are seeing the 2 cables, the same as I mentioned. And if you notice this clip here, now this whole thing, we are going to remove this whole thing, right? So you want to make sure that this wire are not connected. So you are supposed to just press this pin and remove them. So what it means is, these cables will be separate from this thing. They are technically not connected. They are just connected in terms of tying them together so that they don't move around. So they are more like connected via like a plastic and not like actual wiring connection. So by just pressing this here like this, we are going to remove this thing and separate them. Okay, so if you notice, the wires are separated from this thing by this, connected by this plastic, and the plastic also is separated. And we have for now, leave the plastic as it is and leave this wire, and make sure that you mark them somehow that you don't use it for anything else. So you don't accidentally use it for the Android unit. These are for the part that we removed from here, and they will always be connected back there only. We're not going to use it. We're not going to replace this thing. They are just going to be reused. Okay, notice I've marked this thing so that I don't accidentally use it and it don't bother me. Move them on the side. Now, if you notice the 2 screws here, screw number 1 here and screw number 2 here. We are going to just use a Phillips head screwdriver to just remove them, so that this whole thing can essentially then slowly come out. Okay, so after removing the screws, next we are going to separate this out. But note that this is essentially connected by 4 wires. So you don't want to pull it out too much. You're just going to pull it out so it's like separate, but not pulled out completely, because we need to first remove the wires after we pull it out from the back. Now one thing to notice, if you notice, these are the clips here. So you can use this, and you can use the pry tool to like press the clip in and then start to open it and stretch it. There are technically 4 clips, but you can just see 1 here and 1 on the other side. You can essentially only see 2 clips at a time. But by removing those 2 clips, it will help you remove it easier. So that's what we are going to remove the clips now. Okay, so I essentially loosened the clip a bit and then just pulled it out, and then it just came out. Notice the 4 clips here, 6 clips here, sorry. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3. So when it was connected via the screwdrivers, they also had these clips. Notice these white clips are very, very important, because when we connect our device, we are going to reuse these clips to attach it back. So don't lose this, and don't lose this thing. Now one thing to note is that if you notice, go back here, you will see there are 4 cables coming out essentially. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. We are going to remove those cables one by one. Okay, so that this whole thing can be separated. So let me remove those cables out. Okay, so now I have removed this thing, and these are the 4 cables. 1, 2, 3 and 4. From what I understand, this circular part is for the antenna. These are the actual one that will be connected to the actual for the actual whole unit thing to work. And then this one is for connecting it to the USB port. What I mean by that is, if you notice this USB port here, this one is essentially connected via this thing here. So that is the purpose of this thing, and it's for this purpose we connected those 6-pin and 4-pin connections, USB things that we connected. So yeah, let's continue with that. Okay, so now everything is connected. Now I'm going to show you the wiring quickly. So first of all, what you need is, if you notice this small thing here, this will get connected to this wiring here. So what that means is, yep, and that's it, right? Next we are going to look at this thing, this plug here. This is for the USB, right? So notice what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it. Okay, it is connected. Next, there are just 2 cables remaining that we need to essentially connect. Let me move this here. Okay, and notice all we're doing is connecting this thing here, and next this final one, this will be connected to this thing here, and that's it. We have connected all the cables. Next we are going to go and going to turn it on and see what everything happens. Okay, as soon as I turn it on, it shows Android logo, and then everything just turns on. As soon as I turn on my car, everything just turns on and everything just cuts. So as long as you have used the harness that they have, that you have purchased separately, everything should just work, and it should just turn it on as long as you have made all the correct connections. I'm going to turn off the car now, and I'm going to put all the plugs and everything back, and my next step will be to essentially connect this over here at the top like this, so that this antenna is closer to the top. So turn off the car while you are doing this, just to be safe. Okay, so next thing that you want to do is essentially remove these clips out from this radio here. We are going to put the clips back here into this particular device, and then I'm going to show you all the things that you should be checking. To remove this clip, it's a little bit difficult. You want a screwdriver like this, and just put it inside this white clip here like this, and then from the inside, and from the outside use your fingers and remove it. Once again, on the inside part, put this thing, and from the outside part use your fingers to remove it. You can also use 2 screwdrivers if you are having difficulty, but essentially that is how I removed it, and that's how you remove it. And you are going to remove all the 4 clips. Next we are going to put these rings on the car. Okay, now to put the clips back, it's actually quite simple. All you have to do is just put this in and press it in. Very simple, right? So if it is not going in easily, which means something is stuck. So you might want to move it around and remove it around and then press it. You should hear a click. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to connect all the 6 pins, white pins. So this whole thing get connected. I have connected the radio, the GPS antenna over here. Notice this thing moving. It is right here. That is very, very close to the window because you want good signal. You can also put it from the outside and place it here. I just like to not keep outside but rather inside. So I'm going to do that. So yeah. Okay, so I've connected all the clips, pressed them in. Next, just slowly start putting all the stuff inside. Pick it up and start to put all the plugs and cables and wires inside. So they, and now, and I want to notice something, right? Notice how all of these plugs are coming out. Carefully place all of them inside here, so they are not like, hitting. And now we are going to plug this whole thing in. Yeah, just put everything in. There is more than enough space, because if you remember, our previous unit was very, very big, right? And you can see here. And now, so if you notice, I have plugged this thing in, right? Next, we are going to connect. You can also put stuff here. You can see there is still space, and you can also steal the stuff here. You can see the cable here. But all you have done is plug this thing in. Next, we are going to put the AC cooling temperature unit back in its place. Okay. Next, if you remember, we had removed this unit out. This is the heating cooling unit. We are going to put it back. So we are going to just put back the two plugs that were present. Okay. And then this plug as well. Oh, the thing is, because I have connected the tapes, it's a little bit tricky. Let me remove the tapes now. So it has a little bit more flexibility. So I have connected the two plugs back, right? And now I can put this thing in and plug it in.